isn't it? Is that the WAF?
Army.
Royal Artillery, heavy attack.
And I worked in the command post, watching the raids, you know, as the air bombers came over. But I went all over the place, really. My training at Warrington.
We'll do that afterwards if you like it. You don't know how it works, do you? I'll show you how it works.
And this is my family. You've seen
Yes,
that?
yeah. I know that number's 3 here, although she will see.
I hope it's got some empty space on it. That's the only
Can you
thing.
see me?
No, I didn't. I wondered who this was. Show me, darling.
I don't know. There's somewhere here.
Yeah.
There?
Hey, that looks like you.
Yeah, you've got to have the
that looks like you,
fridge.
definitely.
Got to have the main. What about the spiv chap who painted his
And that was Mr. James, who we've already discussed.
Oh,
Was
right.
he a pencil or something?
No, he had a coach.
Oh, was it?
Oh, he was the coach driver. Oh, right.
Yeah. Very.
Do you remember when he had that Armstrong Sidley Sapphire limousine? He bought one of those.
Yes, to do drive people.
Dr. Town was going to on a conference of medical conference, and he borrowed. He said, "Can I borrow your Armstrong Sidley?" He said, "It's much better for me to turn up." Left him his old banger.
Do you know, we're talking about Dr. Town a lot. Do you know he ended up not being a doctor in the end. I think he was struck off or something like that, and he ended up doing vet. I think she was at the end of his life.
Yeah, nice doctor, Dr. Town. Yeah, he was the son of Old Mother Riley.
Where did he live?
What do you mean,
Old Mother Riley was a comedian and filmsman.
Yeah. So this was
a man.
A man dressed
He was a man. He was a man. Arthur Lucan.
That's right. Kitty McShane.
That's
That's
right.
right.
Husband
This
and
is
wife.
partner.
And their child was Dr. Town.
Dr. Town was
Yeah.
had a practice. Between
you know where the church is up there? You know that as you go up the hill to Lewisham, right? You know there's a church now in the middle piece of ground. I know some
between Lee
Christian.
Road and Lee
That's some
Park.
Christian thing.
Oh, that Mormon church.
Yes, right. That was an old, beautiful old house.
Really?
It was really nice.
Well, actually, it was the house was more towards the apex of the pavement,
Yes,
wasn't it?
yeah.
So it must have had a big garden to be able to build
Yeah,
that.
and it was
Was he a
really
doctor to the road then? Was he the local doctor?
Local doctor.
yeah, local doctor.
Good doctor.
Did he was charging, I suppose, in those days, wasn't he?
No, the National Health Service, wasn't it?
Oh,
48 that was, but I mean before that he must, I suppose when you were young.
If we had a doctor that
Oh,
was when we were children was Mr. Boosley and
Yes.
yeah on the
I
hill.
remember that.
Yeah,
No measles, he came to... Oh, Doris.
Hello Doris, lovely.
So where you've been going through the streets?
Well, you were just on your own going through number 1, 2, 3, weren't you, trying to...
Yeah.
Oh, well, we haven't got to think now, we've got Doris here.
Well, in the very first house, as you go down the hill, was Westbrooks. They're
Number 1.
West number 1. Next to them lived Doreen Hall.
Yes.
Mrs. Hall.
Who we met
the other
Oh, your auntie was that side?
Your
On that, next to Doreen Hall, there's 2 houses there. Was there one of them?
Doreen Hall lived in one of them.
Yes, I know she did. What about the next one?
Well, the very first one was the Westbrooks.
Westbrooks, yeah.
Oh.
No,
Yeah, this is good.
Lovely to see you.
There. That's Mrs. Greenfield. Look at this, Doris. Look.
This was for
Because Doris is a fantastic needle girl.
And is this it? Is that
Yes.
That's it. And that's your
Did you know
daughter?
that, Pam?
That's my daughter.
Doris is a fantastic needle lady.
I knew.
Oh, really? That is a magical photograph.
I know.
That's a lovely photograph. I'd love to borrow
And the
that
brothers
photograph.
all made these crown.
My husband and brothers, they all sort of worked together on the crown, the velvet and all the different jewels in.
Yes. And this is her wearing this
That's
dress.
my
Doris.
daughter.
That's so lovely.
Grandma made it wistful.
How did they make the crown?
Oh, I've forgotten now, but it was very well done anyway. And this is the velvet inside, of course. Oh, I didn't know we'd been in. Oh, didn't you know? Oh, yes, yes. I went into the army 6 weeks before we were married. Before I was married. Did you know it?
Did you marry an army man?
No, a naval man. A regular naval man, 12 He's on Minesweepers.
So this was taken in what year?
That was taken in 1943.
And you married in 42?
42. 60 years ago, actually.
And had you already agreed at that time to go, you'd already arranged to
I went
join
into
up?
the army March the 7th, 42, and I was married 23rd of May, 1942. My first leave, and we were married at the church on the Heath.
Won't say it, yeah. I think we all had to get married.
Well, I did have a picture.
Obviously you had one there, haven't you?
I don't know if it's still on.
Yeah, you did have one. Yeah, I was going to say you did have one.
I got that because that's my grandma there, who Olive and Joyce remember.
Yes.
My grandma there.
Well,
yes. And the next one is Mrs. Westwood.
Yes, who you were just mentioning.
Yes, and the other lady, I can't
Now,
remember.
is this Greenfield family, the same, the ones who have always been the people Doris has always talked about sewing in the street? Was that your mum or your grandma?
Yes,
Your mum.
Yes.
And that's
My mum.
That's two brothers.
I see. Great. So these were the brothers who helped with the outfit for the little,
Yes,
your
with
little
my
boy.
husband. Les was on leave at the time.
Sweet. That is lovely. Stephen Studios, Nelson Street. So are you in that picture? Is that
Yes,
is that you? Do you remember it being taken?
Yes, yes.
What were the circumstances?
Well, it's just that my mother wanted a photograph of the three of us together. And I think this was taken somewhere at Lewisham.
Greenwich.
Greenwich.
Yes.
Is that
Stephen
Willie?
Studios.
William?
Yes.
This is Willie.
My first reaction was Willie because we didn't call. Yeah.
John.
And he had very curly hair, didn't he? Didn't he have curly hair?
Absolutely sweet. God. Do you remember anything about the visit, Pat? Anything about?
No, except that we were all excited that we were all done up in a bit to have a photograph taken.
Yes. Did you ever come here to have a photograph taken?
Yes.
Did
and
you?
I looked, well, I was going to bring it along.
Yes.
It was in the window of Wayland's for weeks. As my mother made all the dresses, there's Bo Peep.
Oh, really?
And my daughter loves the photograph and she has it framed and it hangs in her house.
Where's that?
At Sidcup.
So we could borrow
And
it.
so, I'll let you have a look at that.
We had the memory of
It's a
somebody
coloured
saying that
photograph.
they came along and saw Bo Peep in the
Yes,
window.
we
And I
did.
think
Somebody
you
who
said
saw
it.
your photograph,
Yes.
they must have told
In
you.
another interview,
I
said
think
we went to Wayland's, there was a picture of Bo Peep in the window.
That's right. That was there for weeks.
How lovely. Tell us anything you remember about we've got a lovely memory from Olive of coming here to have her photograph taken. Tell us what you remember about coming to have your photograph
Well, I
taken
thought
here
it
in
was
this
all
room.
very posh here. Did you?
Yeah, love walking up the stairs.
You know,
But I know definitely, was it here we had it taken because we was under light, under
Yes.
natural light, wasn't we? So,
Yes.
were they always here, these windows, or are these
Yes,
you?
an earlier incarnation of them. Alex has replaced them, but
Yeah,
there was
because
an off light, which
yeah,
means there's
yeah,
no shadows.
yeah.
And so that's why the photographs were taken in here.
Yeah.
And so you would have come in here. Was that also, that was just you on your own, was it?
Yeah.
The Bo Peep outfit?
Yeah.
Was the Bo Peep outfit created for some special occasion?
A fancy dress.
At
party.
school or where?
At school.
At All Saints?
Yes. Yeah.
So are you the same who's the same generation as you?
No, I
We're all
Doris
a
is
bit
the
different.
eldest, I think.
Doris
When
is
on
younger.
him?
And when were you born?
1923.
So that's so
Probably
so that's 10 years
1920.
before you, Bernard, is it? 7 years before you. Right. So so would you have played with any of
Oh,
these
yes.
people?
But is the girl dressed in a nurse's uniform that was holding me?
Oh, of course. That's absolutely.
I couldn't do it now, Bernard. I won't attempt.
Please don't.
So that must have been. There's Bo Peep in that photograph then? No, that was another occasion, isn't it?
That's
We got you as the soldier with
You was
fun.
a nurse there, wasn't
Dory
you?
Hall, yeah.
Yes.
Probably your mum made that out.
She did.
That's what I mean. I can always remember thinking, great envy of you, thinking you've got all these clothes.
Did Mum get commissions from up and down the street? Did people come in and say, Mrs.
Yes.
Greenfield,
Oh, I
what do
think
you
she
think?
does.
Curtains, dresses.
Yes, yes,
Everything, really.
yes.
The boys' trousers and
And she would accept those commissions, she would charge.
I suppose
It's not that sort of
maybe a shilling or two.
Well, that's
Yeah,
right,
it'd be nothing. It'd be nothing money.
Mm.
It'd be nothing. When you say charge, it would be for a shilling or for really for.
It was a neighbourly act to do it, really.
Oh yeah, but she did work as well. She worked in the Reliance Laundry.
That's how I remember her.
She used to go
As
to work
what?
all day, and she used to come home and sew. And
Really?
oh,
What
yeah.
did you do in the laundry?
Things were
Washing
quite hard in
on?
those days, weren't they?
Oh yeah.
Was your father working as well?
My father worked in Smithfield Market. My grandfather did.
Yes.
My
What
grandfather used to bring all
was
the
he a
chicken-
porter or
No,
a
I forgot what they called.
Well, I think.
He worked in the shop for a while, my father. But then he was a long distance lorry driver.
And when he was working in Smithfield, that must have been rather a useful sort of thing.
Well, they used to get the 3 o'clock train in the mornings from Blackheath
Yeah.
to get to the market. Because my grandfather sometimes used to come and sort of knock at the door and say, John?
Not the stick on the window.
No.
No.
But, and they used to get, was it the last milk train, I think they called it, was it? Yes.
That's the earliest we've got. We were recording memories last time of who was the earliest person up, and nobody could touch 3 o'clock in the morning that day.
That was the
So
time
he
of
went
train
off.
they used to get,
When
3
would-
o'clock in the morning.
When would he get back from that?
Well, late afternoon.
Right.
Mm.
And did he bring back bits for the family? I mean, was
Oh yes, my
There must be.
grandfather used to supply one of the neighbours.
Yeah. He used to.
They used to have he had a shed at the bottom of the garden, is that right, Bernard? Because he lived
So
above
up his
you,
meat as
didn't
a
he?
shed.
really?
And he had a meat safe on the wall,
That's
on the
right.
outside of the wall.
Yes.
And he used to keep it ready to distribute it to
The
whoever.
neighbours.
So it's quite a
No,
little
I didn't
cheap.
know that.
Did you?
Because they weren't
Well, it's a cheap
refrigerators
meat,
weren't.
it's
No,
cheap.
were they?
No. No, I
Bernard
didn't know.
knows because they
No.
lived above Bernard.
Yes.
And his
No, I
family.
didn't know that. I didn't know about
Yeah,
your
Mr. and
little
So
meat
you,
place.
does that mean you ate quite well, perhaps, as a child?
Oh, I think so, really.
Probably better than Olive with occasional.
But no, I think Ollie's family were a better place than mine, really.
Yeah.
No.
Better off than we were.
No, we had a car.
You said in terms of money and everything.
No, we had a car and we had clothes nice, go to Heinz for your coat, Heinz here. But
No food.
it didn't have food indoors.
Didn't you?
No. No.
Didn't you?
No. No.
Oh,
So you had all the show. That's why you had the impression. You went out. I don't think I ever bought anything but black paint and shoes with
We all
tied
used
ready
ankle
yeah.
straps.
And I could have 2 dresses on a day easily, washed and put on, and had to look like that. Dad always had a car. I don't remember him not having a car. And good cars. I mean, Raleigh and.
That's what I mean, to see they were better off than we were.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
it's interesting, I mean, how you perceived it and how it really was.
Yes, and I think my mum made us a bit snobbery. She did keep us in.
Your mother used to keep herself.
Yes. Yeah.
Who was your mum's special friend in the street? Did she have a lot to do with Doris's mum?
No, not really.
No.
She might have gone with my aunt who lived at 12.
Mrs. Bliss, yeah. The kids.
Oh yes, Carrie, Kitty and Cat,
Yeah.
yes.
I think they
That's
had
right,
quite a
and
lot.
Billy.
Yeah.
How are your
Billy
cousins?
Kits.
Your cousin?
Do you know Doris? I didn't know they were your cousins.
No. And did you know they supplied Billy Kit supplied our shop with all our flowers that we ever sold.
I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's quite interesting from our point of view, because there's obviously a terrific network of services going on in the street, like
Yeah.
the meat coming home and then big
People always helped
chocolate
each
and
other.
flowers to the
People did
windows.
help each other.
Oh yes.
Oh yes, they did. Yes.
I can't think of anybody doing that.
No, no,
No.
really.
Well, as a little
Well,
girl in the
my
street,
family came. My brother and my sister.
Your brother was Ernie, wasn't
No, Leonard.
They all
Oh,
did.
They went to your mum's to
he?
eat.
No one to see
Your mum would feed all of them, but I don't know. I see there was a big difference between Len and Peggy and then me.
Yes.
See, so Len and Peggy would go into Memlane, so many, there was so much food.
Yes,
Mm.
that's
And your
right.
mum was a widow, wasn't she?
Yeah, but she
She had
always...
died when I was 10. But George got very hard.
Doris, you had a brother, didn't you?
Sid.
Sid.
Oh, good. Good. Yes, put those.
Now that's my mother at 95.
Let's show Pat, because she'll probably remember them.
Oh, you know that photograph? Who had it last week? Where they said it was of a street party and coronation or something, and they said at the back that's Nan Bliss.
Mm.
Who had that?
No,
Oh, have you got it?
no. No, I brought them to sleep. Although I think Anne put them on.
Yes, they're all on the...
Oh, well, that was...
Oh, that's my daughter now.
Oh, yes. You're very alive, aren't you, Doris?
Yes, they are.
Where does she live now?
That's her daughter.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful. Where do they live?
Pat lives at Horsham, and you could live at Worcester Park, because she's old enough, she's got children.
But I do think that's nice. Well, you come to the village and you walk down Collins Street every time, because I do exactly the same.
Where do you live now, Pat?
Yeah,
Sidcup.
Oh,
and
not
she
so
still
far
comes to the
away.
village and walks straight down Collins
I
Street.
always
Just
walk
tell
straight
us
down
then,
Collins Street.
when
When
you
you
walk-
look so different down
I know.
there.
It doesn't look so pretty, does it?
No.
With
What is the
the
difference?
The trees.
Yeah.
But it looks
I
smaller.
know how distressed he was.
The houses
He had
look much
cancer.
smaller than I
Ethel.
imagined.
Yes.
And I remember him
But it's still
trying
the
to
same
bloody
really.
faith in
I
it.
think it's the
Yeah.
trees I miss. The
Yeah,
trees
so
I miss.
desperate, yeah.
The big trees.
Yeah, because she had cancer.
And could you see them big trees? The people with had prams and babies used to wheel them across the road and put them under the tree.
Trees, yeah.
Mm.
Do you remember the auction?
And then 12 fell again.
The boys used to go scrumping over.
Hang on, let's just try and go one at a time, because there are
Yeah.
poor people who are
Oh,
going to
sorry.
listen to these. They can't. No, it's all right.
This.
And we are recording bits of it because we're going to be making a play about it, Pat. So it's my task to try and make you talk one at a time, which is very difficult. Okay, let me just ask you, if you do walk down Collins Street, I will have a put this in a few minutes. Let's do one. If we take you down Collins Street when you come back from Sidcup, what kind of images come into your mind when you walk down the street? Of the past?
A lot of happy memories.
Like,
And also, well, it was just a happy time, really. People were all friendly. And, but when I go back now, everything looks so much smaller. Did you find that, Holly?
No, I think it's because I've always been going down there, so I've never seen the difference, because you've got to realise I've never really left it.
No.
I think that's quite common though, you know, Pat, if you leave a house as a child and you come back, or as a young person and you come back, because I did the same when I went back to my childhood home, which I thought was palatial. And when I went back, it was really quite small. The garden particularly, I thought was a stately home, and it certainly wasn't. You know.
I go
So-
back and I noticed like a silly thing, like, you know, we had outside your mum's house, there was a gully, and it was like where all the rain would run, right in the middle of that, and they filled it in.
I must say.
And they filled it in.
Go on, you had a memory. What were you thinking then?
We used to get dreadful floods.
Mm.
Well, our dining room has been swimming. Well, the furniture's been swimming. And we had a piano in the downstairs room, and the water used to come above us. Oh dear, my poor mum.
Yeah.
She was frantic
Bail
trying
out.
to get all
Stop it
this
from
water
coming
to
over the
sink.
bottom step.
We had what they call an area. We had about 4 or 5 steps down, didn't we, to the front door, and then there were about 8 steps up to another big door, you know. But we were in the basement, I suppose you call it. You know.
Was this on
And
the...
of course, all the water used to
Come down that hill.
come down the hill.
Was this the set of houses near where John Bailey lives?
Yes.
Yes.
I know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you had a piano. That was unusual in the street, was it, or not? Or did lots of families have a piano?
People used to come in
It's a
and
common
play.
thing.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Who played the piano in your family?
My father and I played the piano.
You played.
And we used to have, what do they used to call them? Well, friends used to come in and you'd have a sing-song.
Yeah.
My grandparents would come in and my gran would sing, you know. Dad would say, come on, Mother, it's your song. But
What was her song? What?
just a song at twice.
Oh. What were some of the
And
other
she used to
songs?
say to Grandad, now Jack, if I forget the words, tell me.
Oh, how sweet.
Of course they'd have a dream, no.
What did they drink? What, beer or
Oh,
sherry?
beer.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
And what other songs? That'd be really nice to know, wouldn't it? For the party, the people's party pieces and the family. Did you have to do a party piece, for example?
Oh, let me think.
Nelly Dean?
Well, we all sang Nelly Dean.
But what about you as a kid?
I think Alice Blue Gown, I think I used to sing.
Lovely. Yes. It's a lovely song, isn't it?
I used to belong to a dancing troupe called Turks Concert Party.
Turks concert.
Turks.
How do you spell that?
Turks.
Yeah, I remember her.
T-U-R-P-S.
She lived in,
They lived in Weymouth Road.
Road.
Oh,
that's
where
right.
did you rehearse?
At their house in
At her
Weymouth
house.
Road, and we used to give concerts. And once again, my mother used to make our dresses for the shows.
What sort of dances did you do? Like sort of
Tap dancing.
Oh, yippee!
Singing. Ballet.
Yeah, all sorts. How many in the troupe?
I remember Mrs. Turks.
We had Bobby Turks. He used to sing on the radio when he
The
did.
Girl Ewings used to go a lot.
There's Elsie Ewing,
That's right.
Jenny Ring.
That's
She was
Paulette's
in our-
sister, is it?
Yes, she used
And
to
she
be
was
in our
in a troupe?
dancing troupe.
Oh, where did you perform?
All over the place.
Boys and girls together?
No, I don't think we had a boy. No, not dancing.
So just the girls, and very nice. for
I
our
beg
show.
your pardon, we did have, because we had a boy called John Seaman. Remember Johnny Seaman?
Do you know?
I remember Albert Seaman, the
They
Wyndham
lived in
Seaman.
Paragon Place.
Was it related?
And I remember I remember him, I was doing, Annie Rooney. And I was Annie Rooney, and John Seaman sang it as he came one side of the stage, I came
How does
one.
Annie really go? What's it? What else?
She's my sweetheart. She's my Annie. Very soon we'll marry.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Remember?
Yeah, those
Little Annie Rooney is my sweet. Oh, I thank you.
Oh, no, it's great. It sounds lovely to the show, doesn't it?
When you did your family sing songs, what other songs came up? Can you remember? What did your father sing?
Daisy, Daisy.
Was that his one?
about that.
What else?
Your brothers?
All the songs of the times.
Did they all have specific ones? Like you said, your
Well, we
mum
all
had a
used to join
particular.
in together.
It would be nice to
My
think
grandma
of
used to
the...
have her song.
What was that?
My father used to sing When Your Hair's Turned
Just
to
a silver
Silver.
twilight.
Yeah.
When your hair's
Turned to silver.
How's that go, Lou?
I don't know now. I'm not got a good
When
voice for
your
singing.
hair has turned to silver.
I love you just the same. Yeah. My dad used to sing it to his mother.
The equivalent of When I'm 64, isn't it?
Yeah. It's my dad used to sing that to his own mother.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's
That's-
one
that
thing that
sounds
stood in my
must.
mind.
Who else had a piano?
You did, Doris. Who played your piano?
I did.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you have a parlour?
Yes, I did.
Well, the piano was in the parlour.
Yeah,
all
that
of them.
goes in, yeah.
But you
But
see,
no
Doris and Olive, they lived in a different type of house to us.
Yes.
They didn't have we used to call it an area.
Yeah.
That's right,
Didn't
yeah.
have basements
And
there.
Bernard lived in the same type of house as us.
As you, yes, that's
And
what...
was it your mum? Did she have the whole house or half?
Whole house.
Yeah, because we were saying when people
But you
came
get-
to College Street, they didn't usually start off with a whole house. My mother started off in rooms, and then as the people moved out, then she took the house. So, do you think your mum came in and had the whole house at once, or
Well,
rooms?
my granddad lived there first.
Oh, right, see, so, yeah.
So when she married, she
And when-
moved into
when,
separate business.
yes.
Yes. And you were born in it,
Yes.
and when you married, did you go to a separate house then, Pat, or did you start off living with your
Well,
parents?
my mother didn't live there then. She moved from Charlton from College Street to Charlton.
Right.
Yes.
So,
That was before the war.
I think I like the idea of a story around a music evening with people. Would there be a special occasion when people would meet and sing around the piano? Would it require somebody to have a
No,
birthday?
every occasion.
Really?
Any
Just
occasion.
Really?
Any occasion.
Mm. And then when did these pianos go? Did you keep the pianos till you moved out of the
No,
houses?
when my mother died, I gave it to young couple, boy.
the street on any occasion?
Yes.
On the street?
Yeah, not ours.
Street parties,
When
right?
they had street
I think the
parties.
Reeds have Reeds
Well, they were fantastic.
They were a huge
had,
family.
They had about 10 children.
12 children.
Yeah, and then they all worked in the local shops.
Yeah.
Like you said, your mother went to school with one of them. That was Dolly Reed.
Mm.
And then there was the girl that worked in the fireworks shop and the toy shop,
Ella.
Ella. And then
That was Avery's, wasn't it?
No, that's wrong. That was one.
Avery's shop.
No, Avenels.
Avenels. And yeah, and then they would go out with one of them. I don't know which one of the Averys went out with the boy Merlin.
When she married him.
Yeah. See, so it was quite.
All very much interwoven.
Mm.
So,
I was asking Doris, because when I leave you, and if Doris hasn't been round, I'm asking her questions all the time. Asked her about the lamp light, how that turned off and on.
oh yes.
Yeah, she thinks it's a lever.
It is a leave, used to go on and on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put it on.
But what we were wondering is, was that lever inside? Did they have to open the door, or was the lever outside?
I think you used to pull the door open.
Yeah, so you're right.
Bernard, you're right.
Yeah, see, because I'm
It had to be, because otherwise the rain would have got inside.
That, the children would have been up there like
Oh
that.
yes, they would have done.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
I would have, but no.
Just going back to Pat, because we haven't talked to him before about sort of when you walk down Collins Street now, if you were to think about, say, a memory from childhood as though it had been a black and white photograph taken at the time. We've talked about the piano coming out in the street, and we talked about singing, we've talked about some of the neighbours. Are there any particular friendships where you can sort of imagine yourself with a group of chums in the street, and if so, what might you have been doing, or playing, or any particular occasion that maybe if somebody had been there with a camera, this is what they'd have seen?
Well, I used to play with Reedy Smith.
Yeah, do you remember Reedy Smith?
Reedy Smith.
Marge Youngster.
Is that
Yes,
Molly's sister?
Marjorie Looney.
She died quite young.
Looney Anstey.
Yeah.
She was 19, I think, when she died.
Yes.
And so the photograph would have shown you playing what?
We used to play races from the kids' door,
Or jumping.
outside weight, what's that?
Wade. Wade.
Weights,
Mm.
from weights, and they used to do the elderly man hits. Oh, what's it called? It would be Bliss.
Yeah, you're right.
They would come out and they would encourage us to go run round them posts that are still there and back again. And sometimes we'd do that on and off at races, and they'd all join in. you
Would
know.
the mothers be standing outside the door, sort of watching
Not
it?
necessarily go there.
No.
Used to do.
No.
So that, what was in your
We used to
imaginary
play
photograph?
hopscotch.
Yes.
Hopscotch.
Yeah.
We used to play at the wall, because
Oh.
Avery's house.
Did you used to do handstands up the wall? Yeah, I did all the time.
We used to face that house, we used to look onto that wall. And so we used to play ball, didn't we? Two
Yeah.
tennis balls.
Yeah.
All sorts of games, and stand and
Like
put it
the
round.
other man.
I think we played. I think our life was very, very much out in the street.
Yes. And
Very
what did you wear? If you think about a photograph of yourself at say 8 or 9 or 10,
Lady Blue Bloomers.
navy blue.
Right down to your knees.
What sort of dresses? Blouson skirt or little dresses?
Oh,
Pretty dresses, I think.
Yeah.
I used to have pleated skirts.
Yeah.
Do your mum
Mum
presumably
knitted,
made most
pleated
of your
skirts.
stuff, did you? Would your mum have made most of
All
your-
mine clothes.
All
Mm.
and half of the other people in the street?
I was smart.
No, my
Yeah.
mum.
Oh, a lot of gym slips. A lot. I think my mother always kept me in a gym slip. Yeah.
Did you all have to wear a gym slip to school?
Yes.
Or-
Yeah.
Grass.
Mm.
So one of the things that we were going to touch on recording days and marriage today. We're going to, I mean, let's just start with a detailed story from Pat, and then we'll perhaps come around. And we've got some wonderful stuff from Olive about Bill, but we don't know anything about. Tell us about how you courted your husband, or how he courted you, Pat. How did that all
How you
go?
first met?
How you met and where you went if you wanted an evening out and so on.
When I met Les, I was doing a part-time job Saturdays at Levy's in, which was a gents outfitters in Woolwich.
Oh, right.
And my husband came in, well, the sailor came in, was white, you know, the white stiff collars.
Yes.
And I served him. When I left the shop to go home at 5:30, I suppose at that time, Les was standing outside the shop and spoke to me, and he said, "Can I see you home?"
Was he in uniform?
I don't know.
He was,
He was.
yes.
This was about 1941, was it? Or was it more 40?
Probably
Or
about 40.
40. How long did you know him before you married?
About 2 years, I suppose.
So, what was your work at this Levy's?
He was just serving behind the counter.
Did he make to measure, Mr. Levy, or was it
Yes, he was a tailor's. Yes, Hare Street in Woolwich.
Jewish tailor?
No.
No, a name like that I would have thought.
Yes, and
Perhaps it was. Perhaps it was. I didn't
Because there
know
were
when I
lots
was
of Jewish people in Woolwich. They had their own synagogue, I know
there.
that.
Could well have been.
Yes, yes. But as far as you're concerned, it was just Mr. Levy.
So that's how
Your
Les
second.
and I met.
So that actual day, he just waited all day, did he, for you?
No, it was in the afternoon he came.
All right.
And I was surprised when I left the shop to go home that he was outside.
And he walked you
And he
home?
walked me down to the bus stop. And he said, "Do you mind if I see you home? Can I, you know?" So we got on the 75 bus to Charlton.
doesn't run anymore.
And that was it. And
you travelled
When you say that was
he was
it?
going back on lordship, and he said, "You know, can I write to you?"
Oh, really?
Gave him my address, and we started writing together. When he came home on leave, we used to meet.
How often did people come home on leave in 1940?
Oh, well, he couldn't say really, because he was on. It depended. I mean, he was on destroyers then.
And you couldn't-
then he
in
was
the
on
Atlantic?
mines, yes,
I
yes.
think I saw Frank about 4 times. Was it the 7 years?
Amazing.
I
Amazing.
think the
But on
longest
the
part
strip-
that Des was away after we were married was about 18 months.
But when, just like Claire, I'm intrigued by the idea that you had the one meeting, and on the strength of that, you corresponded, did you? Or
We
did you
did.
see him again before he went off? on-
No, we corresponded. You know, when he came home on leave, we met up and used to go out together dancing. And
Where was that? Where did you go dancing?
we used to go to Woolwich Polytechnic,
Yes.
All Saints Hall
Yes.
in the village.
Used to have lovely times.
Yes. All over the place, really.
Really? And so the whole...
Because you used to come out from the dance hall and there'd be incendiary bombs and blaze in the street, but you still carried on.
Did
Go
you
and
have-
have a drink.
Did you go courting before you met your husband? Were there other...
I had a boyfriend when I was at school, and he went to the Roman school, and I was at Charlton Central then. And then from Charlton Central I went on to Barrett Street Technical College at Bacchus Selfridges.
To study what?
Just did hairdressing, manicuring, beauty culture, wig making. Matt was still at the Roman school then, and he'd come up and meet me from school if he had a holiday.
And where would you go with him?
Oh, he used to go just for walks and to church. He was in the choir at St Margaret's Church along Lee Terrace. Couldn't do much.
He lived locally, did he too?
He lived at Charlton.
Of course, yes.
He lived in the house. He lived in the house that my mother and father took over when we left Blackheath, and then they bought Charlton, the house at Charlton.
I'll just ask
But
something
I'll
about
tell you the interesting part.
Okay.
That Mac, this boy, because when I met my husband, I dropped Mac.
Oh.
And he was in the Air Force as a Spitfires, and he was a pilot.
Through Mac?
Yes. And we didn't see each other for years, and then I read an article in the Mercury from Mac, it was signed Mac, talking about the war. And we got in touch, and he rings me now about once a month.
Where does he live now?
And he lives in Cheshire,
In Cheshire?
just outside Chester.
That's nice.
Yes.
I'm
And so
intrigued
we're
by-
still friends, and he still remembers my birthday, and we still send Christmas cards. And he was over to, came down to London to see a friend last year, and he popped in to see me.
Just going back to the letters hat. I mean, and other people may comment on this, maybe Doris too, if your husband was away so long. But I was just thinking, did people sort of conduct a courtship through correspondence? I mean,
Mostly.
so that the relationship progressed through the letters. It wasn't as though you, when you met him again, when you came back on leave, it wasn't like you were meeting for just the second time.
No, we corresponded. I mean, I think that applies to most service people.
Yes.
No, thanks,
That you did.
You
You were married, Doris, yes.
Stay water.
Were you?
Was it
Yes.
On a Sunday morning?
Just sitting around the table, I got married at the Congregational Church. Quite early because we were going to talk to him for our honeymoon. We were just sitting around the table. And
Sounded so loud.
When the siren went.
everybody disappeared.
Yes,
Like to say,
yes.
well, the bride and bridegroom ran off. And they did, and they just scattered. They did.
Yeah.
I know that everybody came out the street, everybody I remember, when the sirens went, all came out in the street.
And
Everybody.
then disappeared into their...
No, it was out there a lot because, and I will always remember, absolutely in a panic. I was 19, absolutely in a panic because we'd all been issued with gas masks. I immediately thought of gas. So Bill was in number 7, so lodging. So was he's come out, and he's walking towards me down at 19, and I am petrified that he should. And I think it's one of the first times, and I can't remember really ever being so cross with him ever again, because he really thought it was nothing and he didn't need his gas marks, and I was in a panic, the noise was going on, and I think being issued it, I really thought as the sirens went we'd all be gassed, and that was my real reaction.
Olive, were you not at Doris's wedding then?
No, it was a very close family. You had a quiet wedding, didn't you, Doris?
And what happened to everybody at that? Did you not ever get round to having your reception then?
Yeah, well, we sort of got through the reception because, you know, sort of thing, we just sort of going to cut the cake, so God knows what happened to the cake, I really don't know. But, you know, we got married about 9:30 because we wanted to catch the more or less, you know, the
Train to Torquay?
Yeah.
Did you go to Torquay?
No,
All cancelled.
everybody was so scared to be there.
So what happened exactly after the wedding? Like,
Well, we had a flat then, we got a flat at Ferntash Road. So everybody sort of disappeared and sort of eventually we went up to the flat.
It must have been an awful letter.
Yeah.
Have you paid for the holiday in advance?
Well, we took the deposit down and everything, but nobody thought of that.
No.
so you had.
bother getting money back.
So I was just thinking about the actual day, the minute it
Sunday.
happened. All that everyone disappeared.
Well, yes, there was Mrs.
Yeah, I think
Wade
it's probably the
come
shock.
down, because Carrie said she was lonely, so she came down. And they were all sitting there, you know, and they did have their gas mask with them.
Yeah, oh God, I remember the gas mask.
Where were they sitting, Doris?
Around the table, you know.
In the house?
In our house.
Yes.
And they sort of, my cousin Carrie, she shot up the road. I mean, Mrs. Wade went with her, and everybody seemed to go.
Mm.
You know, it's gone. Except some cousins that,
Do you know, I'm thinking something. I can't remember the sirens going once on my wedding day. Can't remember them going once. Not
and every time, because sometimes now, like the other day, they had on the television various, like the church, who's the previous one.
The
Yes.
famous, yeah.
Well, there was they broadcast the thing from that chap who was in charge at the time.
Chamberlain.
Yeah, Waveney's Chris.
Yeah, Chamberlain.
38.
Neville Chamberlain.
That's right. And they gave the broadcast of him announcing the war.
Well,
And I thought, ooh, yeah, I remember you.
And And you remember the day,
Oh.
I'm sure. Well, just out of interest, just going back, because Claire was in the story of the actual day, when you were planning the wedding, and when, you know, the announcement was, it was already anticipated on the Saturday, or on the Friday even, on the 1st, wasn't it? People were kind of waiting.
No, I don't think we thought they'd come. No, I don't. I can imagine that siren going, well, unless it was me at 19, I was coming as a complete shock.
Really?
I don't think people really thought that it would happen.
No, I don't think so,
We were
Doris.
so unprepared. There was nothing, absolutely.
So when you
nothing
abandoned
going on.
your holiday, you just stayed in your flat, you just stayed in
We stayed.
Well, do you have a terrible sense of anticlimax or not? Or were you too worried about everything?
Well, you worried about everything, aren't you, really? And, you know, you sort of just got on with things.
What about you?
Then I went back to work after a week. I only got a week off.
Yes.
And went back to work, and we used to go up to town, all through the Blitz. We used to go up to town. Twice I had to walk back from the
Yeah,
city.
we hadn't had any bombing locally at all.
Nothing
Nothing to
about
declare.
a year. About a year.
Just going back to the wedding day, though, Bernard, what was your memory of the day war broke out and where you were?
Well, I was 9 then, and I think I was out in the backyard, and I can remember the siren going off, and I think there was a panic to get the cardboard box for the gas mask. I can remember sliding down the back stairs from the backyard, as it were, down into the basement in panic, sliding down.
Yeah, I can remember such
Really?
panic over this gas mask.
Because you thought you'd be safer once you got
Well,
the
it
gas mask.
was, you know, when the siren went, we thought the next thing we expected was bomb.
Yeah, yes, immediately. You expected it.
Yeah.
You're standing there, and the noise, they seemed so they were the loudest.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard sirens go since, but that morning, they seemed to me so they were...
I think it was on top of Winchester House.
Oh, then, yeah, well...
Oh, well,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
absolutely horrific
noise.
And where were you that day, Pat?
I was at home at Charlton.
You were at
At Cheltenham.
Yes. Yes. So, just
And then I went
just,
in the forces
yes.
before I was married.
Let's
Well, I
just
told
go
you
back to
16.
how you joined up. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that? Did you volunteer?
Yes.
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 What
I
attracted
chose
you?
the army because my mother was from an army family. Her father served 44 years in the Lincolnshire Institute. So I chose the army.
And
My
what
father was in the
when you-
army in the First World War. And then during that 6-week period, we decided to get married. And I went back to camp, Les went back to sea. And when I came home for my wedding, my mother had made my wedding dress and 4 bridesmaids' dresses. And we were married at All Saints Church in the Heath. And we had our reception in Jobbins.
Yeah, so did Peggy.
And
That's
it was,
the
I'll tell you how much it was, because my mother still has
this
works
Jobbins
in
Hall?
the
Is this the hall?
Is this the hall that Jobbins? My
No,
sister.
this is, no, I don't think so.
No, it wouldn't be
Jobbins was right. It
You
was,
know where Alan had
Where
the picture
Alan's
frame?
workshop was?
Yes,
that the hall?
I think that was the hall.
I tell you, there was
Yeah.
used to be a shop and a little tiny door in between
Yeah.
the 2
And you
shops.
walk up that
I think it was a newsagent was the next one. And you went through this door and up the steps and the hall
Yeah.
to the back.
And there's the sign that we copied off the...
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah.
That's why we've got cakes
Yeah,
hanging
no,
up.
so when
the
are
reception
you
was there.
Are you using, I couldn't say Alan's place at them. Are you using that pen?
No, Tony Bennett's.
And do you know how much it was? 4 and 3pence a head
For what?
for our reception. These guys.
Was it you costed it out
Or,
for
no, that's how they
What did they get for that?
They
What
tell
did
you
Jobbins
that
provide?
when it was booked, 4 and 3pence a head.
What did Jobbins provide for the reception?
Well, you had a sit-down meal.
Oh, really?
And,
What would that be?
You
Sort of
couldn't,
meat
you
to
couldn't
veg?
get an iced cake, white icing, because of the sugar. So my husband's aunt worked for Slater's, the caterers in town. So she had a huge fruit cake made, and it was a top that you put.
Oh, that we did, you know what I mean?
So so that he looked like a beautiful nice cake.
It was cardboard, you said.
Excuse me, is Miss Diana Mills? Yeah. Sorry.
You said it was cardboard.
That kind of thing, but it was made like white ice
It
with
looked
all the
like
trimmings on it, but it just fitted over the cake.
That was very common, wasn't it, in these days? And then they lifted it off and covered it.
They married in 1940.
But I mean, forward through to head. What
Do you remember what their people ate?
Yeah.
Do you remember what the menu was?
Yeah. She probably.
What sort of thing would it be? Would it be chicken or meat?
Because
Can't
everything was
really
rationed.
make my cake.
Exactly.
I see.
I had 2 tiers.
That's a bit of salad and some trimming on it.
Would it
And
be
a
sort of
sweet.
tinned salmon or something?
Something like that. I really can't remember.
Were either of any of you at the wedding?
No. We didn't live in the village.
Oh, no.
No, Liz did all my wedding. Doris's
Yeah.
mum.
Yes.
And then we was up the passage in the
In the
little school.
Yes.
Was in there.
Was it?
Yes, yeah.
The wedding reception?
Yeah.
In the
Lovely.
school?
Yeah.
Really?
It's gorgeous.
How
Yeah.
average school?
Yeah.
How come, Ollie? How come
father
you
used
are
to go to
those
that.
in
I
there?
don't know, it did.
I don't think it was a school then, was it?
Yes. Oh.
I got married in 1940, so would it be a school?
Oh, the school has probably been evacuated.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, probably evacuated. Anyway, whether they let it out, I
Yeah,
know that's
maybe
where I,
did.
that's where, and Nan Bliss,
Mm.
who was, you always hear me talk, looked after me so much, she did everything for me. I was just saying, I can't remember the cake, because she was wonderful at wedding cakes and icing them, so she just took over and done the lot for me.
Amazing.
Mm.
And your parents must turn up.
Well, my mum and dad, my dad was sweet, but my mum wouldn't do it, you know. But, no,
You
no,
couldn't
no.
get the icing sugar and all that in those days during the war.
Well, 1940.
So-
So
so
you went back into the army?
Yes,
straight
after
afterwards.
my
And what was your training like when you first joined up? Was it, what sort of routines were you
very
put through?
tough.
Was
A
it?
lot of for drill. Now I used to get up early so I could put my clothes on because it's difficulty during that front stud. You used to have a stud.
Where was the training?
I did my training at Warrington.
Oh, quite a long way away. So the first time you've been so far from home, really.
Yes.
And
A bit
did,
homesick.
and you were all sort of sleeping in dormitories and things, were you?
Yes. Yes.
And then where were you posted if you were away so much? In the
I was at where did I go? I went from Warrington to where was my next camp? Sheringham.
Oh, really?
Yes, and from there I went to Gravesend, and I was on a gun site. 563 heavy attack battery at Gravesend.
All through the war, you were in the women's army?
No, I was in the army about 2 or 3 years after I was married.
And then you had a child?
Yes, sadly I lost my baby. I lost 3 sons.
Really? And this little girl was the survivor there?
That little girl, we adopted at 6 weeks old.
Really?
Shouldn't be putting that on there, should I?
No, well, it's just the fact.
She knows that, doesn't she?
Oh, yes, yes.
Yes.
Yes, I had one stillborn, 9 pounds, baby. And my second one lived 6 hours. And my third one died at 3 weeks old with meningitis.
Oh, terrible.
Do you think it was all war?
I had one after Anne, you see, 2 before. But she's the loveliest daughter I could ever have.
Really? Did the other 2 then survive, or did none of your own children?
No,
I mean, this little girl came to you. How did you find, in those days, how did you find children to adopt? Were there a lot of mothers who were, it was a very different situation, wasn't it? Because unmarried mothers didn't hang on to their babies. Yes.
she was 6 weeks old.
Oh, wonderful. And where did you find her? I mean, how were there agencies, or was
No,
it?
it was an aunt who knew somebody who had a baby that was going to
Yes.
and I said no, and they said no.
Yes.
So I had one, another one when Anne was 6. I had my 3rd boy, and I was home from hospital. 4 days. He was taken in. And he had pneumococcal meningitis.
Really?
So, but I've been blessed with a lovely daughter and
Yeah.
grandchildren.
This girl now has
Which
children.
I'd rather not. Who's going to listen to
Nobody, only us. I mean, this
I'll
is
tell
just, it's all right, I mean, this is just for our us. But tell us a bit about her and about her young days, and you as a young mum. And
Well, my mother and father idolised her. And she's always been no trouble at all. She's been very nice, quite clever. She went to King's Warren. She's got a scholarship to King's Warren School. And she has 2 sons, Daniel, and he is 27 now.
You've got the photograph.
He's in the stockbrokers.
Yes.
Benjamin is 20. He was 21 last Saturday, and he's a trainee quantity surveyor. And Lucy is here. She's 17 and she's at college. She does 3 days, and she has 2 days she works in an office, and she's all for her church. So, which is nice. She's in with a nice group.
And this is your daughter?
And this is my daughter. She looks, she's better looking. Well, she's a lovely girl. And this is my son-in-law.
What does he do?
He has his own business. He's electrical. And
So you're quite a close family, are you?
Musician.
Yeah.
Very close. Very close.
Oh, lovely.
And this is just their girlfriends at the time.
That's the choice.
They've changed already, have they? Different ones now.
But if I come again, I'll show you some better.
And that, the wedding one, just tell us a bit about your wedding, because we've had the wonderful story about Doris's on the first day of the war, but this was still wartime, wasn't it?
Yes, it was wartime.
And you
But
came
my mother,
here.
I was in the army. I'd only been in the army a couple of months, I suppose. And when I came home on leave, we'd put the bands up. My mother had made all the dresses.
Is this All Saints? It is, isn't it?
This is All Saints,
Yes.
because we attended All Saints Church. This is, and this is my dress, and she did 4 bridesmaids' dresses, 2 in powder pink, powder blue, and 2 in pink.
Oh, wonderful.
That's-
And did
that's
you
my little
walk? Did you
grandma
walk
there.
to Jobbins in your wedding dress, or did what?
No, we had a car.
And they drove you from the church to Jobbins. Really?
Which is just
Yes, next door. In your wedding dress.
Yes.
And then what did you do? Did you go
Our
home and
honeymoon,
change?
we had we went to a friend's house at Catford.
How long for?
One night.
That was one
and then I went home all bashful.
Oh.
And we spent the rest of our leave at home.
Did you? And how
And
was
then
the
I
leave?
went back to my camp, and Les went back to
Oh, well.
Mm.
I think
We
I must have had a
We
luxury.
had
one.
50 very happy years together.
Did you? Yes.
Very happy.
I'll tell you some of the things that I wanted to
Oh, it's
ask.
Hampton Court.
What? Hampton Court, did you?
Yeah, right by it, because the coast, you couldn't go to the coast. It was
That's
all,
right. Did you have a plan to go to the coast? And then
No, not really. Well, I don't think you planned very much ahead.
No.
So when it came to go away on the honeymoon, that was all barred. And don't know how it came about, but we left the hall and we went to the station. And so I don't know whether it was your brother, because he was a real, he really looked after me, and he really was lovely. And I can remember them, you know, the luggage thing that, like a trolley with the big iron wheels and then all wood. And our cases were put on there, or one case. We sat us there, and they were running us up and down the platform.
Oh,
yes, yeah, it was really, yeah. You know when I mean a trolley, like 2 wheels?
Yes.
And
With your cases on.
Yes.
This is like the equivalent of tying shoes onto the back of a newlywed's car.
yeah, and I can remember getting to Hampton Court, and it was then getting quite dark. and to find the road, because the blackout.
Had you booked into
We had
B&B or
booked,
something?
yeah, we booked into this, which turned out at the time I thought the most wonderful place, a romantic thing you've ever known, lovely lady. And it was about 2 days later, the first bomb, it was only tiny, sort of demolished only about 2 houses. And it was such a shock, because we left Heath with nothing and gone straight there and seen the first bomb and seen the 2 houses down. And so that was a shock. And I remember this poor little lady, she'd gone under the stairs and that. Well, anyway, just a story. Years and years later, I kept on saying to Annette, I really would like to, I think it's called Nightingale Road. And I said, I really would like to go back and see this road, I really would. And of course, you really shouldn't, because I had such a romantic feeling about the whole lot. And I goes back, and I have to knock on this door. I don't know, I seem to know the number and everything. And this really cheeky little boy, about 12, knocked on the door. So I said to him, well, I came here for my honeymoon and just looking. So he said, well, do you want to see the bedroom? And I came back really disillusioned and that. But I always wanted to go back. But we used to go walk into Hampton Court Gardens.
Really? How long did you stay there, Olive? Just a couple of nights or a week?
No, we had a good week.
Did you? Really?
Yeah.
What year was it? What year were we talking about?
1940.
And that was Bill on leave?
No, he went, Bill, we got married in the August, and he got called up in October, October the 1st, I think it was.
So he wasn't running his shop, he was working for Mr. Samuels then, was it? Yes.
So,
I'll tell you one thing that interests me. We haven't talked about this, but I'm quite interested in the sort of end of the street, as you remember it, the time that people left, like people. You'd already gone to Charlton when you got married. Whether people...
Mrs. Reed left. That was a big gap for me.
Was it?
Yeah,
when was that?
Oh, that was before.
Yeah, because she had all these
Girls.
girls, and some were, because like Rosie would be my age, and the others were so much older, because you get 10 children, the gaps.
Yeah.
And at least 10 she had.
12, I think, 12 was.
And where would she go to then?
She went to live in the Green.
Yeah, near Manor Park.
Moving because she needed more space?
Yes,
or more space?
And I was always told afterwards she really wasn't happy. She missed the street. Her husband was a little tiny man and he was a tram driver. Yeah.
That wasn't the Mrs. Reed you told us, or maybe somebody told us about somebody who was lost on, was it the Hood, or who was lost, who died at sea? Was it her father then?
No,
The first
tram
one.
driver. Don't know anybody down
Okay,
there.
I must be following up, but I think I remember one of our plays. But so that was a family who went, and that was a whole. What do you remember about people leaving then? Because you were there right to the 50s, weren't you?
Well, no, there's a gap between the end of 1939 to June
Of course,
1945. So that period,
yeah.
a lot of things happened then.
Yes,
That's right. You were away, weren't you? Jersey.
Yeah.
Do you remember? When did you leave?
Yes. Did you know?
Okay. When did you go off to Charlton then? Earlier than that, perhaps?
Before 1938.
So why did your family leave Collins Street?
Because it was a better house.
Yeah, I think it's come out of an area, come out of a semi-basement,
Yeah.
and
I suppose
It was a nice house.
things financially were looking up in 37, 38, weren't they? People were doing a bit better. And your dad was still in the meat market, wasn't he? Smithfield.
Well, he was a lorry driver.
He was lorry driver by then. Okay. And where would he drive to?
And he used to be over to the people who owned the railway tavern.
Cutmore.
you're still friendly with
And
her.
I still see Winnie, we're still friends.
Is that the woman who's now called Sarah sometimes?
Yes.
Because she's going to come in and have a chat, actually.
Winnie,
Yes.
Yes,
she's lovely.
She's known locally and recently, I say recently, within the last 10 years as Sarah in the
Sarah,
village.
that's right.
She likes to be known as Sarah.
So your father was
She had
faithful to
one
her.
son,
They-
yes.
Mrs. Catmull was definitely had my father drive their car.
Oh, she has a son.
What
So
car
he
was
used
it?
to
I think it was
go on
only one.
these great big Austin cars.
Oh.
And he used to drive them to their bungalow in Cornwall. And then they sold the bungalow in Cornwall.
Must have been doing very well then for pub owners.
Oh,
To have
yes.
a chauffeur and everything.
Yes.
Oh.
Both went to private schools.
Did they really?
And I was always friendly with them. They was like one of the family.
Yeah.
So who else were your best chums at that time?
They come to me then. My age.
Jenny Ring, she was a friend of mine at school.
And the Rings were Common Street, weren't they? Yes.
I remember we used to have a Mrs. Hall,
Yeah.
didn't we?
Yeah, they were,
Doreen
rings were
Hall.
quite late
The
coming
Hall.
to Street, weren't they? For us, they were real newcomers.
The Rings.
Yeah, they were
came from
newcomers.
Deptford, didn't they?
They were definitely newcomers.
Next to
I
the
know it
Rings.
sounds funny, but that's how you thought of the street, didn't you? As,
They weren't really acceptable.
no, they were really new.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they lived around on
And yes, and their house was.
And the car.
So, if you were to think of it,
Miles.
it's interesting that you
Yeah,
picked
oh,
out the Reeds going as something where it left a big gap. Who else do you remember going on it, and then the street didn't feel quite the same, or didn't, maybe you didn't experience it?
No.
I did like the boy Avery, I forgot his name. Douglas, yes, when he went to Australia with his wife that was a nurse. They got married, didn't they?
Were they the £10 poms? Were they the people where they went for £10 in the 50s?
At that time, I think.
Could quite easily do that. And the Averys were quite a character in the. Then we said we mustn't talk about it really because. I know we both decided, didn't we?
What's that?
Talk too much about the Averys. Just state that Mrs. Avery.
Yes, I do. Right, was she?
The blonde
yeah,
bomb
she was
girl.
quite a glamour girl, wasn't
Yeah,
she?
very glamorous
Well,
girl.
you know, when you're young.
Yeah.
She used to sort of make up and all that sort of thing. What was that? I don't know. Tell me. We lived opposite them, didn't we? I mean, they lived
That's right.
facing us, or the big brick wall did.
Well, she worked in the hotels in London, didn't she?
I don't know.
Chambermaid.
Chambermaid in,
With
say,
her,
all the best hotels, so she was like a chambermaid. and-
This is not being on the.
Do you want me to-
We could turn it off.
Yeah, I think it's.
Go on then.
And Mrs. Avery, mother, she was very sort of staid, wasn't she?
She was.
And when she was up there like with her sister chambermaid, they obviously met lots of people. And
She was glamorous. She was quite
Yes, she was.
She was glamorous.
blonde and furs and.
Can't remember how old she was, just a little bit older than me, I think. She went back about 17 or 18. And she'd met this German chap, and he came down and asked the mother that if he paid the mother, could she stop at home so that she could go around with him. And mother, oh yes, was quite delighted, you see. And he had a little Austin car.
What about clothes first? Because she had so many
I'll
clothes.
put up there. He had a little Austin car, you know, which opened up the back. And of course, she was all dressed up. He was a farrier, had a fur place up in the East End. And the furs would come out. And Mrs. had a fur coat.
I don't remember any of that.
Yes.
We did that.
Oh, we used to
Yeah.
laugh, you know,
Yeah.
because we'd all done up these dresses, and then every now and again, every now and again, Lily, she was very friendly, everything, you know, she just didn't, you know, that was it. She'd have a sale of her dresses for 26 each.
Oh, I don't dance telling me.
Well,
Good
because I'm
stuff.
more,
Yeah, you're more her age,
well,
you
not
see.
her age, I was that much younger than her, but Helen Gallagher, you know,
Yes, I do.
we used to go hysterics, because Helen was much older than me, she was about 10 years older.
They still buy clothes.
But she used to have all these glamorous dresses and think that people in the street were going to buy them for 2 and 6 pence. Of course they couldn't.
Why? Why wouldn't they? Because they didn't want clothes that she'd worn.
No.
Two sort
To,
of
you would wear
It's a
them.
flash.
Oh, they were over top.
Yeah.
top. And they would go, you know, off they would go and all the rest of this. And they used to tootle off down into this car. There'd be mothers stuck in the back, sitting out there.
Mrs. Avery?
Yeah.
And this went on for quite a long time.
And this is before the war, is it?
Must have been before the war.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, this is
Yeah,
before
this
the
was
war.
before the war. And then suddenly I think it was about 1930, you know, you always used to go out to the sea, towards the seaside. You loved going running down to Portsmouth, loved to do everything, you know, all went round. And I remember one occasion where Lily was showing me photographs of the mother and her standing in front at Portsmouth and everything. And in 1938, I think when Hitler started on the move, they hadn't heard from him for about a week. And Douglas had gone up to this fur place, and it was closed, gone, and he'd gone.
Oh, really?
Yes, but of course the photographs with all the boats at the back.
It was always went on their outings.
Oh,
They
right.
always
Yeah.
went on their outings to
What happened to Lily?
Portsmouth, the naval
What
base.
do you mean that they were actually, he was
He
taking
was-
photographs?
Yes.
Yes, and they
It
were
was a
standing there. They
Yeah.
were standing there, you
Yeah.
see, and there's...
And she had an awful rude awakening because she'd had a wonderful life for 2 or 3
I didn't
years.
know any of this.
What happened? Did she, he disappeared, and she suddenly
Well,
realised.
she came down to us at the bank.
Yeah, because she got to realise.
Did you have a visit from the Memlane, like you with
Yeah,
bowler
I
hats?
don't
And,
think so. I don't think anybody sussed it really,
No.
you know, except the village of the...
Well, you don't know how he went or whether he was made to go or
You
whether
don't know,
voluntary.
exactly.
Who did she marry in the end?
Oh,
Jerry.
sweet man.
After a
Jerry
while,
Burston.
no, Jerry, didn't she?
Yeah. He was a bus driver and he became
Very, very
an
nice.
inspector, wasn't
It was all very kept close.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it was kept very close.
Oh, and do you know when I said to you about, and John said people tell his, you know, Molly about where somebody got hung.
Oh, yeah.
So I said that was right. But
Yes, this was way back.
it's way back, but it was a story that was continually told.
Yes.
Whether it was
Who was that?
About
There were two. There was the
In-
fellow who cut his throat,
Molly.
and then there was somebody who held himself.
in Molly's house, upstairs,
Yes.
underneath the arch, as you walk down the stairs,
Must have been about 19.
From the-
and the arch, he
From the-
hung himself.
From the wall
Yeah.
of the steps.
Yeah.
That was long before the Downs.
But we lived next door. I
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said to Doris, now do you remember this story? So she said, oh yes,
Mm.
What?
that story of the
Oh,
man.
yes, because my mum told me.
Why
Yes,
did
he
you do
was
it? Why
told.
did you do it, Doris?
I don't know. My mum used to work, you see, as a barmaid up in the Thames then, before she was married.
So she heard all the stories, I
Yes.
suppose.
And she worked.
She knew him.
Yes, and she said that he used to come in every night. Very nice chap, how well fellow, you know, and he was in this quite good mood and everything. And suddenly the next morning she heard what he'd done.
But do you know, if one looks, a lot goes on in like the streets like this. It's unbelievable.
That's
It's
why
like
it's
the
so
way-
interesting to take
Yeah.
one street, you know, because actually, from the stories you've told us, there's a wealth.
And the way
Coming
in the
together.
end house,
Yes.
right next door, you know, right in the corner. And now they were glamorous girls. Well, one. And she had
No, it was only
one
one daughter.
daughter.
It's Kapoof used to live next door to them, didn't it?
Right, yeah. They're
And she had a
that
tragic
was
end.
the back entrance in front of
She
the-
married very, very well off.
Well,
didn't
she was a model or something, and was out tiny, I suppose about 7 or 8. And we used to see her coming up the village in the portmanteau case. And she'd always speak, you know, though she was very tall, you know her. And she used to give me 6pence if I carried the case.
Oh, 6 was a lot of money.
So I was net 6pence for carrying the case up there to her house. Eventually she married, quite sort of well off, I think. And I think, you know, I'd heard that she was having an affair with her husband's brother, and the brother, and they'd got this yacht or whatever it was. But Grace went either fell or was pushed. And they never really knew.
Was that Sarah?
But her mother said that her mother told her that police had said that she got a button in her hand or something, so someone, whether she grabbed it or whatever.
So you're bringing it right up to date. What about the Avery's house being the last what?
Oh yes, somebody got shot in
Oh, yeah, that was
Right,
Paddy
how long
Onions.
ago? How long ago was that?
Well,
They fired a shot through the
that
window.
must have been
Yeah.
within the last 15 years.
Yeah, within the last 15 years.
Yeah. Yes, he was.
And he was murdered afterwards, but when he moved out the house,
That's right.
he
Yeah,
was gunned down.
He was gunned down in the Wharf area.
He was
Bermondsey, yeah.
he was the most charming man to talk to.
He was very kind to my mother.
He was ever so kind.
Was he there? Was he there
Paddy
when you
Onions.
were all there? When you were growing
No, no.
This is quite a bit
But I'm
later.
just saying, this is
Up to the
let's
present
bring
day.
it up to date. The latter 15 years of Collins Street, it's still going on.
Yeah.
It
And
was-
somebody to move there, and then somebody fires.
But didn't a boxer bought the house before him and moved out? Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, he was a well-known professional boxer, and he became a sports journalist for one of the
I
newspapers.
always think Paddy Onions came down there to try and sort of lay low and play it quite light for a little while.
He was very nice.
Ever so nice. Oh yes, ever so
He
nice.
used to come over and invite my mother to come over and have a drink.
He had big warehouses of food, tin stuff. He used to deal in you know, where you got the River Thames and then the massive buildings, because I went there once.
At the warehouse.
Bernard, when did you leave Collins Street? And why?
1963. It would be, funny enough, it was, how many years was it? 1963. It was 40, was it 30? Mental arithmetic's not so good now. We left Collins Street November 1963,
It's 39 years ago.
39 years ago on Saturday.
And why did your family leave?
Well, we
was
left
married.
because the accommodation wasn't right for us. We'd only sort of been marking time there because we had to. We couldn't get we put in for a council flat. We couldn't get one. We'd been there for 10 years, and we thought, right, we've got to get out of this ourselves. And we got a mortgage and got a place in Sidcup.
And how did you feel about leaving?
I wasn't sorry in a way, but in retrospect, a few years afterwards, I couldn't sort of keep away from the place.
No, I can understand that.
Well, Mum was there, you see, so I used to, and relatives were still there
I
too.
think it's because we've all been happy there. Like Pat said, she comes to the village,
Yeah, it was-
she walks straight
Always
down there.
there.
I walk down there.
But now I've got a different attitude about the village. There's no connection there now except Molly and
Yeah.
yourself
Yeah, yeah.
and Doris.
And us now.
Well, yes, but the village itself,
No,
as
but
far
I'll
as
tell you
I'm
what it
concerned,
does for me. I'll tell you what it does for me. If I walk down there, my mind immediately goes, and I go past the houses, I think,
I name the people.
yeah, I name them all in my mind. Who lived there?
Yeah.
What happened there? And even to that little gully run by your Greenwood Valley.
Mm.
But we always had this little gully out there. It's only deep as that. And when I walked down, I thought, they filled it in. What a cheek, you know, because I think we might have walked in that little gully.
Yeah.
That's what I think we must have done. And so, yeah, so as I go down,
well,
my memories.
they'd interfered with our playground. That was our playground.
I know.
Wasn't it?
We had the boy on the corner had all his wedding out on the pavement. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Tell us about that one.
Well, he's what was his name? In Mrs. Luttrell's house.
Mrs. Luttrell, that's next door to Avery's.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe they're after
Yes.
No, I don't know.
He's he came to live there. I think he would love to. I don't know whether he's around. He would have loved to come in here, and he could have carried on the talks through there. Anyway, he decides that he's going to get married, and this young lady is like student. So, when he didn't know many people, said, we're going to have, because where they live, where Pat lives, you've got a square.
Yes.
A lovely square. And he said, we're going to have our wedding reception in the square. So whoever walked and whoever there, you just come. And he did it with the tables and the chairs and the lights. And all I can remember is really not eating or anything like that, but the look of it, it was like, and I suppose the weather was like, it was like fairyland. It was
What year are we talking about?
Oh, maybe 25, 30 years ago. I could knock on his door and see if he's got any information, but I'm getting a bit late, aren't we, for that?
Well, no, not really, because we were writing this thing after Christmas, but we're collecting the material now. I'll tell you another thing I'd like to ask you all about. I love that thing you just said, actually. It's really very nice about the feeling of going back, the two of you, and what you feel when you do go back, and so on. And I quite like Bernard and I were going to walk down with Claire down the road, and I think we could do that today, actually. Well, you've got to go. You've got to go. But can I ask something else, which is that I really think the Beano photograph that we've got on there is brilliant, with the coach driver and everything. And I wonder if together you could just tell us about what a Beano from the street would have been like, and who the driver was, and where you went, and what happened. Did any of you do that?
Yeah.
I went on the most, I don't know whether anybody here remembers it, when Lily Avery's husband was a bus driver, Jerry, and he decides that he will get a trip up, and he took a bus.
Hired a bus, yeah.
He hired the bus and drove it.
Yeah, didn't
And
go.
I know I went on it. I must have left.
Yeah, it was post-war, though. It was post-war.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I remember going on that.
And where did you go, Olive?
Just to the coast, but I think it's just the fun of being on a bus going on that way. Yeah, I just think it was
Did
lovely.
people take a picnic, or?
Oh yes, you all had all your, anything like that, you packed up all your own food or, yeah.
My dad always lived in Collins Street.
Yeah.
Was he born in Collins Street?
He was great friends with my Uncle Tommy because they used to walk
Oh, no, I remember your Uncle Tom. He used to have the old spotting necklace and the cap.
Did he go to work? That's right, in the army. Was he a real Roy Morse?
My father was in.
I think it's always been a romantic street. I think so. Going back, I mean, you don't want this on tape. Going back to 1914, when my mother had my sister, and she's a little tiny baby. My aunt, her sister's come up. She's a young girl, single, and she's holding a baby at the door. And this soldier comes down. I think he was a friend of one of your families, actually. And yeah, and the romance started immediately, and they got married in the church that Ted and Margaret go to in Dartmouth Road. You know that in Dartmouth Road? There's that
Actually Ascension.
yeah. And it was so romantic, and I mean, he did die in that war and didn't come back. But the stories down there, I think the place has always had more kindness and niceness. Well, I like the romantic part. Yeah, I mean,
It's very much so, isn't it? Lots of quarrels,
oh yeah, I mean, they never seem to. But then I think this is a bit of my nature. If I don't like something, I don't think about it. I think about all the nice things that happens in my life. I do.
People were all kind.
I think they were. I think they were.
I was just thinking, going back a little bit.
Do you know what you want to our stories?
Yeah.
About live next door to you, Mr. Franklin, and the elderly Mr. Franklin, and the lady in the wheelchair or the chair. She was a big lady, and she was bound. She always wore black. I always remember in black.
The one who sat in the window?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
No, she did. She's quite small.
Well, but she looked big to me.
Well, you got those clothes on.
All right. Yeah.
Mrs. Franklin. She has very tiny glasses, isn't she?
No, but you're going back to.
No, that's Franklin's wife.
That's right, yeah.
Freddie Franklin.
Yeah, but we're going back a generation before
Yeah,
that.
go back to, and what were you going to say about her?
Doris, you know that one.
Mrs. Frank.
She was sweet, wasn't she, Leo?
She was so lovely, and
Yeah.
her husband was always an absolute devil.
Yeah.
He was a devil, and he used to shout and he always used to walk along with one of these Irish sticks, you know,
Should I?
she laid sticks in himself. And
Did he have a straw hat?
we did on occasion. And
That's my grandfather was born in
he used to be, he was an absolute misery. And I remember on one occasion, my mother worked as a cook as well, because she did everything, went all over the place, at Paris, when
Colonnade House? Yes.
and he was the gardener there. And Mrs. Jack, who lived in Colonnade House, gave him a chicken when he cooked for him to take home to his wife. She was a very sweet woman. And my mother, they lived next door, you see, so my mother said to her, "Did you enjoy the chicken?" And she said, "What chicken?" He hadn't given it to her, given it to his girlfriend, he said. So anyway, mother told Mrs. Jack, and he really got portrait in coals, you know.
Yes.
And ever after that, she used to give it to Mum to
Really?
take next door.
I remember her sitting in that window.
She always
Seemed
waved to
very
everybody.
Was this horrible man the one who killed himself? Or-
No.
He would. Do you remember the later generation? Do you remember? So she had one son.
Two sons. She had Frank and Bill.
Yeah.
Frank got married to Maggie when they went to graduation, but it was Bill who looked after her
Yeah.
with
It's
his
pretty
wife.
frankly.
Yeah.
Bill
Oh, yes,
Frank.
Yeah.
But when they were young, apparently, Mrs. Franklin told Mary that he used to beat those children, and she had a little girl as well. And he beat children so much that the little girl had died.
No.
Because in those days, this
Oh, I
was
remember him. I remember
this
him
is
shouting.
way back
Was he a
before.
drinker, Doris?
Oh yes.
Was that it? Was he?
But they lived somewhere else then, I think. But he'd beaten that child so much that she died. But in those days, nobody sort of bothered
No.
him.
Where did he work, or didn't he have a job?
He used to be gardening job.
Casual sort of work.
Yeah.
Is that the looking now?
So this was a man who was of the previous generation, is it? No, he isn't the previous. What year would he have died then, this man? In the 60s or something?
No, I think
Earlier.
Well, you're
They
talking
were
about-
elderly.
well,
I'm remembering
we
them because
are.
they were
He
old.
must have died after, because my brother, as I say, he was 14 when my father died. And I think Mr. Franklin was coming into the passageway, threatening my mother about something. Probably this was a year afterwards. And my brother absolutely went for it.
Yeah.
He was only about 14. Just absolutely went for it.
So what
So
year
he
would that
must have
be?
died about a couple of years perhaps after that, maybe about 28, 1928, 1929.
Went for him with fists.
Oh, yes, I think he would have really killed him.
Yes.
But,
So we're going back quite a long way there. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things I was going to ask, really, from the point of view of our play, because we're thinking about all different possible structures for it. But one of them is a structure through time, obviously. So
Yeah.
going back, we've heard quite a lot about really the older generation, haven't we? And I'm just thinking, you know, the people you're remembering as being elderly when you were little, they would all have been in the First World War.
Mr. Pratt would have been a separate character for you because he had the
oh, he's a Lenin fan.
yeah,
wasn't
and
he?
as you walk a little tiny house and really poor, you know, nothing around, but this massive picture of Lenin.
Oh.
And when
Oh,
Lenin
it's-
died,
where
it
was
was all
In the
draped
Pratt's
in
house.
Oh,
It
Mr.
must have
Pratt's
been-
going
yeah.
And
And
so, was he a member of the Communist Party then?
I
Wasn't
would
he?
think so.
definitely I would think
In the
so.
30s?
Well,
or
he
the
used to
20s?
dress all in the 30s.
I can't remember.
I don't
I
remember.
can't remember what he looked like.
Very nice looking, very tall.
What was his work?
He's in the photograph.
Yeah.
His
He's
wife.
in Collins Street photograph. Well,
I
the
don't
little
know.
boy standing in the corner of the photograph, and the tall chap who's going a bit bald with moustache. That was the chap.
Oh, you must show me that.
That was
I
That
don't
was,
think it was God.
or was that the man who?
No.
Was that the man who cut his throat? The tall one I'm thinking about.
He had a poor little wife.
Oh God, she
Minnie.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was absolutely
Scared stiff of them, I remember that.
Of the communists,
Yeah, because I lived at, I was born at 19, and they would live at 20. So,
You heard it through
yeah,
the
and
walls.
I remember, but I mean, when I say a big picture, and also, I think they had another one, is
They
it?
were everywhere.
Yeah.
Lenin's photograph.
Yes.
But I remember the boy who was born about 10 minutes after my father died.
Oh,
And that was the oldest boy.
because you think the children were being born down there, you see.
It's in the houses, yes.
Yeah.
What did this communist chap do for a job? Do you remember?
I don't know. I know that
All I know
one
is
of the
they never seem to have
Reeds,
money.
what was his name? Bill Reed. No,
See,
not
Reeds
Bill.
will be next door again. You've got my mum, then this man.
Joe
Frank.
Reed. I think it was Joe. He went to Russia with Pratt. They went to Russia, whether they were going to stay there, but he was back in 6 months.
Really?
Oh, no, they must have
When
must
what
have
he went to
got the
Russia
money. Must have
for?
got the money to go.
Well, he
mustn't
must
he?
have probably the Communist Party papers.
He was back with
Yeah.
Was that in the 20s or the 30s we'd be talking about?
No, later, because look, I was born in 1920, and I'm remembering, that's what you'd start remembering, don't you, 6 and 7 and 8. So we're saying, 28, something like that. But poorness, I should think, really, they were one of the poorest in the world, as saying, going in and seeing the floorboards and nothing. No, I remember really, and the kitchen, remember the kitchen was terrible.
I used to come down from town, and she would do about 12 bags. And she used to run up to me and show me her hands because they were clean. I used to get
Yeah, but he was a character, real character. So you know, if he was going round the houses, he
What
was.
would he do around the houses then? Yeah, we would be politically into.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
I would imagine so. Yeah. Big portrait of Lenin.
Oh
I
yes.
tell you one thing, talking about the older people, and we've talked about a lot about the kids getting together on the street. In your memory, did the grandparents ever meet, and did they have a social place where they went, like a cafe?
Only
What were you
My
remembering?
grandparents.
post-war, they did.
Kingston's would go
They
to the
did.
pub.
Post-war.
Not many went to the pub, did they?
Drink.
Not many went to the pub. Did your mum and dad?
Well, she used to work.
My dad used to have a drink.
Post-war, they did. Yeah, because I can remember Mrs. Hall, Mrs. Ring, Mrs. Unstead, going up to the Roman Catholic Church one day a week in the afternoon. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a sort of little social club.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Your mum used to make
And you didn't have to be of their faith.
Yeah, it's like Darby and Jones.
Yeah.
What would they do there?
It's like jungle sounds and
Yeah.
that sort of
I
thing.
said to my mum once, I said, why don't you bring on, why don't you go up there? I said, it's nice. She said, I don't want to mix with all those old people. She made it go.
I'll just say that today,
Because you've got to go
She
to
did
I just
go.
this photograph, I just want to show you.
Can I just say a couple of things before I
Please do.
forget?
Yeah.
One is that going back on the street outings, I can remember one occasion when Bill Kitt Senior took us all down to Canvas Sands in his lorry. He had a lorry. That's one thing.
How many people went?
I don't think he could have taken more than about a dozen.
Yeah. To a couple of families.
But you
Yeah.
know, look, when you think back, a lot went on. You saying Bill Kids, and then
That's
didn't
Bill
he have a girlfriend, or I don't know? There's lots of little bits of scandal when I mean that. Yeah, he did have.
What, being a married man and still have one?
Yeah.
The other thing I must say this because
I remember
Finish,
this.
just finish. When you finish.
this comes from Paulette, who can't be, is not here today. She was relating a chat she had to Laurie James, the character.
Oh, yes, I found
This was at the time when he was just approaching his bad breathing,
Yes,
bad
he
health.
had breathing.
And he was sitting on his garden wall in Collins Street, and bearing in mind the garden is only about, was it about 4 foot wide, something like that. And he was sitting on the wall, and she came up to him, and past the time of day, you know, how that sort of thing. So she said, well, what are you doing? And he said, I've just been watering the grass with whiskey. He said, I'm waiting for it to come up half cut. Put that in play.
Do we have on a previous interview something about what your parents did? I'm not sure we've got that.
Yeah. My father was what they call them in those, described them in those days as a government worker, used to work with people.
Yeah.
It's just that we haven't got any more seats, and these two elderly ladies will stand up.
Oh, right.
So I just wondered if,
I
at
think
any
we should
point,
do some cleaning.
when somebody
You
said,
know.
I'll be finished with the
When did they move to the street? Was that?
It won't be long. No, it won't be long.
I would say early 1930s,
Right.
because they lived in.
And then they had you there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't have any brothers?
No. I'm the only.
And while
I say thank God.
this is
Well,
just an
there's
individual
been more than
question.
one of us in Collins Street.
But do you have any memories of the sewing stories? That's what I'm looking for. Maybe a little story we can tell. Anyone who came round, or any particular thing that stays in your mind? Any character that turned up and wanted anything done or made?
It was just neighbours.
Always a regular neighbour.
Doris might know. Doris?
Yeah.
See, your mum probably did her job
Hilda
up
Hall.
at the laundry, and
Hilda
then
Hall.
did this.
She did. She used to come home and start sewing.
I think stop. Would you like that?
Yeah. All her life.
Yeah.
This
That's amazing.
Time goes so quickly.
She did decorating.
Did she as well? Well, if you do this, I'm thinking of little things you can add.
Saturday. So I'm going right there.
song called Mervyn, he's a builder.
Can't speak to
Yes, I know.
My mother was dead. He was a lad. He enjoyed life.
His mother was a
Had a drink.
and used to clean here.
Quite lively.
He used to work
So I used to have the ding dongs, as they used to call them.
Builder comes and
Play the piano.
yeah, that's true.
Especially at Christmas and birthdays.
Doesn't recollect.
Neighbours come in.
A scene like that in the play, I think would be lovely to. No, well it would, you know, when I get the songs in, because it's going to be a show with music.
Do you know, he likes
Oh, yes, I remember John.
He was loud, he wasn't he? He was got a good sense of humour. Very witty.
He was.
He was, wasn't he? He really was. He was a lovely dad.
be fine.
Could I say something bolder about
I want to
my dad? I might blush when I say this.
put your photos
Do you remember
Can you briefly
Ethel
tell me
Buckley?
which was in them?
Oh, poor
And then I'll put
Yeah.
hats on.
Okay, that's quite fun.
You know, I get rough and sit down here.
Who is this? This is.
Do you want to walk
No, I won't say it because it's something.
I'll get a coffee out there.
It's something that couldn't be used in the play because it's funny. It's funny because